The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's the 20th of March, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by the two amigos, Stephen Wagner and Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day and a lot going on. We got spring practice number 5 getting ready to hit Green Tree Practice Field today. You got recruits like crazy pouring through Coral Gables. Let me start with one of those right now, Stephen. And that was number 1 prospect in the country, a kid by the name of Jackson Canwell. He's from Missouri, a city that only Matt Shodell's probably heard from, named Nixa. And he's an offensive tackle. And, you'd say, oh, wow, an offensive tackle, number 1 in the country. Take a look at this kid. I mean, what a monster. This kid still has a year of high school left here. And he looks like a 25-year-old man. And Miami, without question, is putting the absolute full court press on Jackson. And he wrapped up a 2-day visit in Coral Gables yesterday, Stephen, and you were all over it. You spoke to him afterwards, and just give us a little summation on where Miami stands with the number 1 recruit in the country.
Yeah, so for those of you who might not know, Jackson Canwell is listed at 6'7.5", 305 pounds. He is an absolute mammoth of a man, and this kid hit the genetic jackpot. Both of his parents are former Olympic shot putters. His father won a silver medal at the Beijing Olympics in 2008. And whenever you see Jackson stand next to his father, heck, I think Jackson is going to end up being a little bit bigger than his own dad.
Which one's his dad in this picture, Steve? I guess his dad's not. I guess not in this picture, huh?
Yeah, he's not in the photo, but still,
okay.
Those of you who have seen Mario Cristobal know Mario was a former Miami Hurricane offensive lineman and starting offensive tackle. Mario is huge. He is a huge human being. Jackson Cantwell is way bigger than Mario Cristobal. You look at his tape, and I mean, I have absolutely no doubt, and it seems no one has any doubt he is hands down the best offensive lineman in America. He is a Francis Mauigoa type player. That is how good I seriously think he is. Probably has some things, he'll need to clean up and refine, but I have absolutely zero doubt that he is going to be a day 1 starter, whichever program he goes into. Obviously, injuries aside, God forbid, but right now, Miami is absolutely in the mix of it. Miami actually ended up getting his first spring visit. Miami got his first spring visit. They'll get his first official visit as well. Miami kind of snuck into his top 6 whenever he announced it, I think like a month and a half ago, somewhere around there. They're up there with Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, and Missouri. Right now, I absolutely think Miami is giving itself a very real shot to get this kid. Now, of course, they're relatively new to the picture, considering some of the work that schools like Missouri and Georgia have been able to put in over the years, considering that Jackson's interest in Miami is about 6 months old or so. And, Missouri and Georgia are programs that have been recruiting this kid for, years. But this weekend, or I shouldn't even say this weekend, this week's trip, he arrived in Miami late Sunday. He rolled out of Miami on Wednesday. He's going to be in Columbus, Ohio today. He was with both of his parents, and Miami did everything they could to roll out the red carpet for him. They left absolutely nothing to chance. Heck, they even got the university president involved with him a little bit. The university president briefly spoke with him for about 30 minutes or so. Can't remember the last time that a Miami football recruit met with a university president, but That absolutely happened. Hurricanes are absolutely all over this guy. And I got to say, it really is Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal that are the reason for his interest in Miami. It's Mario Cristobal's long resume of producing top level offensive linemen. It's Alex Mirabal's resume of putting together great college offensive lines, both at Miami and at Oregon. If it wasn't for those two guys, I don't think Canwell would have a ton of interest in Miami at all. But it's Cristobal's reputation as an offensive line guru, and the fact that he is an offensive line oriented head coach that's really attracting Canwell. I mean, the only other coach that you can say, or the only other head coach of a program in his top six that really, also kind of fits that mold is Sharon Moore up in Michigan, who was Michigan's offensive line coach before he became the OC, and then he eventually became the head coach. But Mario Cristobal's resume is much longer than Sharon Moore when it comes to offensive lines. It's absolutely a huge reason why Jackson's considering Miami. I absolutely think that Miami is a team that needs to continue being considered, that needs to continue, being talked about as in the mix for Cantwell. And I think it's going to go on for quite a while, although he is being very meticulous about his visits. Whenever he goes on these visits, he's making sure that he absorbs as much information as he absolutely possibly can. And he's a really, really level-headed kid who tries hard not to get too high on one team or too low on one team. He wants to go on these visits with as neutral a mindset as he can. He wants to absorb as much information as he can. And then once he's finished with the spring visits, he's hoping to kind of sit back and collectively say, okay, what did we learn about these programs? What are the pros and cons? And now let's get ready for those official visits. And certainly Miami fans need to be, very much looking forward to that official visit when he comes down from on May 9th to be the first official visitor Miami will host in the 2026 cycle.
So we're talking about a kid from small town Missouri. Okay, he comes to Miami, spends these 3 days in Coral Gables. I know he didn't tell you what he's going to do, but did you walk away from this with the impression that he was enamored by what he saw here in the 305, or was he a little bit intimidated because it's just so distinctly different than what he's grown up in?
I have absolutely zero thought. The thought never crossed my mind that he might be intimidated in the least. I do not think that this is a kid who wants to, shy away from, the big city or the bright lights or anything like that. He's absolutely fully open to playing in a place like Miami. I have absolutely zero doubt about that. I don't think there's any question about whether this could be a culture fit. Although I also wouldn't go so far in the other direction as to say that I thought he was enamored by Miami or anything like that. Kind of the vibe that I got walking away from that conversation was that, he's really making sure that, he, like I said, he's not getting too high on a program or getting too low on a program. In fact, what he said was he felt like what he saw kind of reinforced and cemented what he already thought and knew about Miami. Especially, particularly Coral Gables and the coaching style of the program and the way that they coach the program. He knows that, Coral Gables, for as much hoopla as, the U gets of, being, right next to actual Miami, Coral Gables is a little bit removed. He already knew that, you can kind of get away a little bit from, the bright lights and the flash and the buzz of Miami in a place like Coral Gables. And he really used the visit to, I think, really learn a lot more about what Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal do with their program and how they run their program. Because I think something that he values above all else is going to be development and a team's ability to get him ready for the next level. I have absolutely no doubt that Miami is in a good position for him. Now, do I think that, they're a leader or anything like that? Definitely not. Kind of out there, a lot of the buzz has been around leaders being Oregon or Georgia. Although, I think this should be noted that he has never said that himself. He has never said that he feels exceptionally high on Georgia or he feels exceptionally high on Oregon or any of these schools. So, as far as I'm concerned, the playing field is, I wouldn't say level, but I don't think the gap between the last team in his top 6 and the first team in his top 6 is very wide at all.
All right. Nice haircut, by the way. Hey, Matt, so we're out of practice the other day, and, the number one player in the country is watching. And I didn't find it so coincidental that a big chunk of the early portion of practice was offensive linemen versus defensive linemen, mano a mano in the middle of the main practice field in the indoor. And this went on for probably about 15, 20 minutes. And it was physical and it was intense. And it was the first time this spring that we've really seen the, kind of like the flip switched on spring practice. Like they had those first 3 practices early in the spring, and now they're getting into a 4-week stretch here of 3 practices a week. And you could just see that now, the fundamentals have been worked on for that first week. The foundation has been laid. Now it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty of building a football team. And if Mario Cristobal is coaching it, it starts with the bigs. It starts with the O-line. I don't think it was such a coincidence, Matt, that those O-line, D-line one-on-ones were early in practice, prominent, and very competitive.
I mean, I don't know what you're hinting at. I mean, they do those things every practice, whether it was early in practice, late in practice.
Not like that. Not on the main field. They're usually off in a corner somewhere. This was on the main field with multiple units out there. I don't buy into the hype that they change practice for recruits. I think they're trying to make the team as good as possible. They've done these drills before. I've seen them in the fall. I've seen them in the spring in the past. Whether it was moved to this particular day because they had one offensive lineman there they want to land, maybe. But really, what I'm watching if I'm a recruit is, and an offensive line recruit in particular, is how involved is Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal with the offensive line. And what I was impressed by wasn't the drill, but like Mario Cristobal is literally correcting Francis Mauanoa after he was the top returning lineman, a second team all ACC lineman. Like he's literally fixing little things with Francis during those drills. Like that's what I think catches a recruit's eye. Not that they're having the drill itself, because the recruit can tell, hey, I can compete at this level. Hey, I'm better than all these linemen or not. You can sort of eyeball it to some extent. But look, at the end of the day, the goal of spring practice isn't to land recruits. The goal of spring practice is to get the team better so they can make the playoffs, right? That's what really impresses recruits, is when you're in the playoffs or pushing for the playoffs when signing day comes around. And, there was something we haven't had a show since the last practice, and they're going to practice again, obviously, a little bit later this morning. But if you hear the way Mario Cristobal was talking about it after the last practice, he literally took out his roster to make sure he mentioned every single player. Like if he was asked about 1 or 2 offensive linemen, he mentioned every offensive lineman. If you're asked about 1 or 2 defensive linemen, he mentions every defensive lineman. And it's like, this is like the modern day. Don't leave anyone out because they might transfer if they're not mentioned. Don't say anyone's not performing up to par because they might transfer. Like it's a little ridiculous to hear him say every single offensive lineman is amazing. Every single defensive lineman is amazing. They're all doing great. Everything's amazing. To me as a reporter, I sort of like the days when they say, this is what this guy needs to work on. This is what that guy needs to work on. To me, that's more meaningful than just generic, bland statements. I mean, why are reporters even bothering to ask about guys when the answer is just going to be, he's great. Everyone's great. Like, they're sort of, I think in the back offices, Miami just laughs about it. And the only other thing I'll mention is, people hate, they hate you in general, but they hate me especially on the I'm talking to Gary, not you, Stephen. People love you. Don't worry, Stephen. You're still good.
I know.
But they hate Gary with a passion, understandably so. They hate me even more. And the reason they hate me is because I don't care. I don't care. Like, if you want to go on other, people on the responding to the last one, where, by the way, I was so negative. God forbid I predicted the playoffs, apparently. God forbid I said anything truthful about Miami being a small private school trying to compete for NIL money against these giant universities, which, the settlement with the government is just an even amount of money. NIL still is going to matter tremendously. God forbid I talk about that. I mean, people are like, I'd rather watch a Beauty and the Beast podcast than listen to Shodell. And I don't disagree. But the problem is, if you have your fan hat on and you listen to this show, you're better off listening to a fan show where they're going to do what Mario Cristobal does and just tell you how great everything is and make you happy for the day. If you want to be miserable for the rest of the day and maybe the rest of the week, listen to me. Listen to this show. Listen to the people you hate. But I don't care, so I'm just going to tell you what I think. That's my only thought on that. I'm done.
Well, something that not even Matt could be negative about was our first opportunity to spend some time with the new guy in the safety room. And my man Poyser from Jacksonville State really has been impressive on the field and off. And Matt, this kid is humble. He says the right things. He's got that look in his eye, like, I am here to be a dude. And I feel really good about that pickup, and I think it could end up being the gem of the transfer portal this year.
Yeah, again, you can't tell much from the interview, but he looks good running around in shorts. So do I. So let's wait until they put the pads on. But the only thing from that interview that I took away that I will remember for a long, long time is that he said the biggest leader on the entire defense is a guy who just got there, Charles Brantley, who's probably not even going to start. And if he does start, it'll be at nickel. And he's been getting torched in practice. So they need help in the leadership department. That's what I took away from that. There's one sentence. I know everything else was amazing. Everything's great. For some reason, that's what struck me as what? When he said it, what? Why is the new guy who just got here, who's not even playing particularly well, the big leader on the defense? I understand there are guys who have leadership qualities that talk, that yell, that say, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. I get it. That's what Charles Brantley's doing. But at the end of the day, you get respect from playing on the field also. And generally the best leaders are also the best players who are like that. So Charles Brantley better step up his play if he's really going to be the leader on defense, or else some other of these freaking defensive players better step up, because they need player-led leadership. The days where you think coaches can be the leaders, that was never the case. And those days are not here this year. It's not a new thing where, now the coaches can just be the leaders, will be fine. They need a handful of leaders on defense who are holding everyone else accountable, not just Charles Brantley. And on offense, I'm not even sure who the leaders would be on offense right now, because last year it was clearly Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo. Actually, I would say every position had a leader, honestly, last year on offense, right? And on defense, they didn't. And you saw the defense was terrible, and the offense was really good. And that points to how you need leaders to hold everyone accountable, everyone to the standard. Can't let guys start slacking. I mean, in your job, right? Just think about your job. For those of you that aren't unemployed from Doge or whatever Elon's doing out there, those of you that still have a job, those 4% of you out there listening to the show, okay? And you're probably going to get fired for listening to the show at work, by the way, so you probably should turn it off right now. But I will say this before you turn it off. If you're working hard and doing a really good job at work, and you're at the same pay level and the same job position as the person next to you, and they're going to lunch and they're talking on the phone half the day, they're taking an hour and a half lunch and talking on the phone half the day while you're working your ass off, are you going to keep working harder and better to make up for them not doing their job? Or are you going to start talking to your friends and your family and taking your hour and a half lunch? And I think we all know the answer, right? That's why you need leadership. Being a football player is no different than being a person in a job. It is a job. And that's why they need more than just Chuck, sit on the bench, Brantley. Sorry, I know that's not his nickname, but I'm hoping he starts. Right now, he doesn't look as good as the other guys, okay? So if Chuck Brantley can start, great. Then he can be the leader in the DB room, but they need leaders across the board. I don't know why Wesley Bassines can't be this really vocal leader. I know he's quiet by nature, but he's been here a while. He needs to take that role on, okay? On the defensive line, Ruben Bain's quiet by nature. He needs to take that role on. Akeem Messidor, same thing. He needs to take that role on. These veterans, there's no reason when you have these guys returning that a new guy who just got here 3 months ago is the guy that's being pointed to as the leader of the defense. That struck me as just bizarre.
All right, so Practice resumes later this morning, practice number 5, and we will have the usual coverage for you coming out of there, videos, post-practice interviews.
By the way, Gary doesn't want to touch it because he already knows everyone hates him. He doesn't want him. He wants me to get all the hate now. Everyone can hate Shodell. What does Ferman need hate for? Thanks, Gary. Way to back me up. Oh, Matt, you're right. I agree 100%, Matt. So anyway, moving on. I had a hamburger for dinner last night. So back to you, Steven. Talk about some recruiting. Has it been really, really good, Steven? Really, really, really good, or just really good?
We are going to let Steven talk about some more recruiting. We talked about the last visit from the last couple of days earlier in the show. Steven, today at practice, got another big recruit coming, a kid by the name of Mason Bonner. He is a tight end, and man, Cody Woodall is really doing a job recruiting tight ends. This kid's from Denver, and he will be out there tomorrow checking it out. There's going to be a stampede with these tight ends. If they want to come, they better commit because Cody Woodall is recruiting like a maniac, and this is the latest. Steven, how significant is this visit today?
I wouldn't say that Mason Bonner is the name that we need to be talking about the most going into this visit. He's certainly a recruit that Miami has shown some real interest in. They are casting a pretty wide net with tight end recruiting, but actually I think the direction that I would look in a little bit more is going to be on the defensive side and the defensive backs, because they have a pair of DBs, 4-star guys from Jonesboro, Georgia, right in UGA's recruiting pipeline and their recruiting backyard. Cortez Redding and Jontavius Wyman, 2 really versatile DBs that the Hurricanes are really, really high on. I think Miami is doing really well for Cortez Redding. He's the top 150 guy. And then Jontavius Wyman, he's a 4-star DB who's actually committed to Georgia right now. I mean, these guys are huge, huge, huge priorities for Miami in this cycle. Zach Etheridge has relationships with that were built with both. Will Harris has relationships that were built with both. It seems like on paper they have the connections with these DB with this DB group that you would hope would eventually end in a commitment. And you have to kind of think, the opportunity to land these 2 4-star guys from Georgia's backyard, they're kind of part of the reason why Zach Etheridge and Will Harris were brought in the first place. I mean, elephant in the room, last year's DB class, they had really high hopes for last year's DB class. They thought they were going to hit it big with that class at the DB position, the same way they hit huge at offensive line in Mario's first year, and then they hit huge at defensive line in Mario's second year. And, they ended up getting, 4 guys that I think are, pretty good. But, fact of the matter is, they missed on DJ Pickett. They wanted Shamar Arnaud. He ended up not coming to Miami. That was another miss. We thought at one point they could land, 6 or heck, maybe even 7 total, safeties and corners in that class. They lost Hilton Stubbs late, and it really collapsed. It really collapsed for them. And so, this year I think Miami wants to continue stacking that really, really top end talent. They want to get the same guys that Georgia is going out and getting. The same guys that these major championship contending Power 5 programs are getting. And I really do think that they're going to have a great chance with both of these guys. I think Miami is a straight up threat to Georgia for Jontavius Wyman. I included him in my mock class last week. I think Miami is in a really good spot. It's definitely encouraging. Then I also think Miami is absolutely a team that needs to be very closely watched for Cortez Redding, who is uncommitted, but I included him in my mock class too, because I really do think he's going to land at Miami too. And actually, you know what? I won't even say I really think. I'm going to say I really, really, really think.
What a surprise!
Those are the guys that I am absolutely keeping the closest eye on. Although kind of Steven, tying back into the.
You should start message board things with like who you think is going to land at Miami, and instead of doing like 60% chance, just say really or really, really or really, really, really or really, 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 really think they'll wind up in the class. I think that should be your new thing. That could be like your whole calling card. They could have T-shirts and everything for you.
That
The really man.
Yeah,
that absolutely could. That could absolutely be it. They could say, I really like Miami's chances. Maybe you can get like a mustache on like a T-shirt or something.
I think it's great.
Oh, there you go. The really mustache. I like that.
But coming back to tight ends, just real quick to wrap this thing up. Mason Bonner, definitely a name that Miami's continuing to monitor. Doesn't have an official visit yet, but he is a prospect that Miami's pretty intrigued by. They are going to host an even bigger tight end later in the week, really this weekend, because I think his flight actually gets in later tonight. Luke Sorensen from Anaheim. We've written about him a bunch. I also included him in my Miami mock class. That is a much more important name to know, I think, right now at this point in the recruiting cycle. Hurricanes absolutely love Sorensen. They think he is going to be a stud. They're treating him like he's right at the top of their board, even though he's like the number 700 prospect or something. I think this is just one of these instances where Miami just found a guy who they think is an absolute gem. So Miami fans with tight ends, make sure you know the name Luke Sorensen.
Hey, really, man, I got a question for you.
What's up, Matt?
And you can't look at our website right now.
All right.
There's a baseball feature story this morning.
I'm out.
On Jake Ogden. Who wrote it for our website?
Oh wait, I was just getting ready to tell that story.
Who wrote it?
Matt decides he doesn't want to work anymore, and his kid is in town for spring break, and he makes him write the story for him.
Hey, he played travel ball with Jake Ogden. Who's better to write the story? Who knows Jake Ogden better than Jeremy Shodell? Was
Jeremy Shodell good? Was he good at baseball?
He played travel baseball, but then he went to a college that doesn't have baseball. So he was good. He was actually scheduled to go to a prospect camp in New York. You schedule it like a year in advance, and COVID hit and canceled the camp, and then he could have gone the next year, but he actually wound up getting a labrum tear, so we wound up scrapping baseball. But he was actually really good. Yeah, he played in Cooperstown with Jake Ogden. He was Jake was the third baseman and Jeremy was the first baseman. Yeah.
I guess we'll never know what could have become of those great Shodell genes, those legendary Shodell genes.
I mean,
would he have just been like the world's angriest pitcher? Like he just goes to the mound muttering.
You know what? It's funny.
Have a leadership problem on defense.
It's like the movie. It's like the movie.
His dad, I'll tell you that. The story today is pretty good.
Oh, it is good. He did a great job. But it's like the movie Twins. He got all the good stuff, and I got all the bad stuff. I have all the negativity. He has all the positivity. You know, people will tell you he's the friendliest person in the world, and they don't really say that about me very much.
So yes, you can check out the journalistic debut of young Jeremy Shodell on CaneSport this morning. I hope you guys enjoy that. But that's going to conclude it now for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us. Like I said, you'll have tons of coverage coming your way on the website as the day goes forward. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our community. We got a great group of guys on the message boards every day, and we're busting our butts every single day as well to make you guys the most informed fans in America. So come on over, get yourself a subscription to CaneSport.com. We let you try it for $1 the first week. Don't think that you will be sorry, and you'll be with us for a long time, hopefully, after you take advantage of that trial. For Stephen Wagner and Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.